Coming up on the Celtics Talk podcast, well, the league is buzzing, but not about the Celtics and their league-leading defense. No, it's all about Marcus Smart and troublesome plays, problem plays, dirty plays, whatever Steve Kerr said about it. So I had to get the big wigs out here. We got Eddie House, Brian Scalabrine coming up to tell me if we should be worked up about Marcus Smart's hustle, and then we shift the conversation to where it should be. And is Marcus Smart the defensive player of the year? That's coming up on the Celtics Talk podcast. All right, Scal, NBA, you knew what the talk was going to be this morning. Unfortunately, it's not about the Celtics lockdown defense. We'll get to that on our own in a little bit. What was your feeling when Steve Kerr was losing his mind about Marcus Smart during that game last night?
My feeling was he was going to walk it back because he has Draymond Green on his team. It's just a road that you don't want to go down. Like once you start going down that road, that's a dirty play. Then you open up Pandora's box. Like you're not going to tell me that Draymond Green doesn't have 30 plays in history that are kind of.
He had
like
one
that.
30 seconds before Marcus Smart. It was Grant Williams and Draymond dove on the floor together.
Yeah,
it was the same exact play.
I was talking to someone at the Warriors pretty high up. I won't say names, and I listen. I love those guys over there. I have a relationship with a lot of those guys over there. And I was like, your best interest is to try to walk it back. I thought he walked it back enough, but I mean, I'm sure in the NBA world, people aren't happy with the way he walked it back. And I will say, Marcus Smart is not Patrick Beverley, man. He's like the guy. He's always he goes to war out there. He may argue with the officials, which is like kind of a different story, but he's always really complimentary and like helps guys up and stuff like that. So I just was wondering how long it was going to take for Steve Kerr to walk those comments back, and we'll see how people unfold this thing. But my guess is it'll get swept under the rug pretty quickly.
So I want to give, I understand the emotional nature of it, right? Like they haven't had their star trio for 1,000 days. They get one really good game. And then now you watch Steph go down. I can understand being worked up in the moment, but it's not like he doesn't know Marcus Smart. They worked together at USA Basketball. He was highly complimentary at that point. He had a chance to look at the play, whether it was at halftime or after the game. And I thought it was just weird that Curry came out and was like, yeah, but it was still a dangerous play. Like, nothing about that to me stuck out as dangerous. And instead of now the narrative being, hey, wow, the Celtics played this crazy defensive game and Marcus Smart deserves to be in the defensive player of the year conversation. Now we're all sitting here going, is Marcus Smart a dirty player? He has to justify his actions, whether it's the flopping or whatever. I feel bad for Marcus that he is essentially on the defensive today. What's the best? How does Marcus did Marcus say the right things after the game? He came out and said like he felt really bad. Like, does he just move forward? What's the right path for Marcus?
Chris, in this world that we live in where people like to accuse people of doing things, I always just go by a guy's actions. So yeah, I'm not saying I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm just saying like from my perspective, just look at my track history. And I would say like, that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. It might not be good enough for you. And then at that point, Marcus Smart doesn't need to care about that. And I don't think he does. I think like, look at his history. I don't think he's a dirty player. Like he has probably done some things in the past, but like the last 3 or 4 years, like the guy hustles. He makes 5 of those plays a game, or I'm sorry, let's say he makes like 5 of those plays like a week, probably.
Yeah.
And sure. I could agree that it's a dangerous play, but there's a difference between like a lot of NBA going to the cup. Joel Embiid going to the cup against who came over and hit him, Jermichael Green. That was a dangerous play, but it's not a dirty play. There's it's contact, it's sports, it's the way it is, and so I don't think Marcus needs to justify himself, and I don't think the conversation needs to be about that dirty play or dangerous play. I think it has to be about, man, the Celtics are elite defensively, and a lot of it has to do with Marcus and Rob.
All right. Well, let's take 1 second. We're going to bring Eddie House in here as well. All right, Eddie, I want to get your, we talked a little bit about it on the post-game show, but just your general reaction now, having 12 hours to digest it. And you were just saying you were watching TV. This is what talking heads are talking about, unfortunately. Like, how do you feel about the Marcus Smart play now, 12 hours later?
I feel the same way that I felt yesterday. The fact of the matter is he got on the floor first, and it always, if there's a loose ball, you got to get your body on the ground to go get after it. If you don't, things can happen to you. And it's not somebody maliciously trying to go take your legs out. We've seen it before where somebody has went down and went after. It looked like somebody actually went after their legs. That play that Marcus Smart did had did not look like that at all, did not resemble that in any way. He went for the ball. He was first to the ball. Exactly what you want if you're a coach. Exactly what you want if you're a teammate. Exactly what you want if you're Marcus Smart. I want to be first to the ball. That's why I'm getting on the ground. And Steph's foot, ankle was collateral damage. And I mean, what can you do? It's like, as a competitor, I'm trying to win. And sometimes guys get injured in the midst of guys competing. And Marcus Smart shouldn't feel any kind of way. The Celtics shouldn't feel any kind of way. And actually, I think the problem is that everybody's making this such a big deal because it is Steph that got hurt. Now, if that was Damian Lee, will we be having this same conversation? Probably not. And on top of that, it's taken away from really the great job that the Celtics did defensively last night. Like, even before Steph went out, he was struggling. He hit his first shot, and after that, he was struggling getting clean, good looks at the basket. Clay struggled at getting shots at the basket. I thought that the Celtics did such a great job defensively that this one incident, where it shouldn't even be a situation or anything that we're talking about, took away from a really good, well-coached team, really a team that was engaged defensively, and also kind of beat Golden State at their own game, moving the basketball. I want to say they had 23 assists on 32 field goals. I mean, they were moving the ball, moving their bodies. And when you play like that defensively and offensively, it tends to lead to victories. But it's unfortunate that their play has been overshadowed by this one play.
Yeah. And so that's where I'm going to spin it. And that's what I wrote today. It's like, I think that if that doesn't happen, we're talking about, is Marcus Smart the defensive player of the year? Is what, who from the Celtics deserves that? So that's where I want to take the conversation. Scal, you said you wanted to see some of the numbers. I dug in, see like what the on-off splits are, who has the best differential on the defensive side. Ironically, right now it's Jaylen Brown. The defense has a higher, because it's so inflated when he's off the court. Jaylen Brown has the best differential. Al Horford's right behind him. And then I think it's Marcus and Rob. But like eye test wise, I think voters are going to have a tough time, because naturally you're going to look at the Celtics and say they deserve someone, but will the Rob and Marcus sort of split the vote with, how hard do you think it's going to be for voters to lock in on one of these Celtics?
I mean, I don't think I would vote for any of those two as defensive player of the year, but I would vote them as first team all defense. I think when you look at first team all like defensive player of the year, they're usually, like I said before, they're usually going to be like, if you watch Draymond Green and when he's off the court, the Warriors are garbage, trash, as Patrick Beverly would say defensively. I mean, hollow in the middle of the paint. You do the same thing with Rudy Gobert. But like, to me, like a first team all defensive guy is a guy with no defensive weaknesses. And, like if you're putting it to me and saying, who would you vote, Rob or Smart? I'd probably vote Smart. And probably from this standpoint, when shots, like normally when you switch like 2, 3, 4, they do a really good job because they're versatile. It's usually you struggle with 1 and you struggle with 5. Like 5 can't guard the perimeter and 1 can't block out a big man. I think what's more impressive for me is the way Smart can keep bigs, either in isolation situation and not get back down, or B, block bigs out so Rob can come and get rebounds. And I think that is like, if you go around the NBA, if you use the Warriors, who are pretty good defensively, Steph Curry's not guarding Steven Adams one-on-one or blocking out Steven Adams, but Marcus Smart would. So, listen, it's close, but I would probably go with Smart because of his versatility, and he is not a mismatch on any position, on any player on the court. So, but I think both those guys will win first team all defense, in my opinion.
Wow. Even that's impressive. And I think it's going to be tough just because what will they classify Rob as? He probably deserves to be more classified as a forward based on defending a lot of perimeter players, but I wonder if they'll list him as a center and, voters. So I'll be very interested to see how that spills out, because he's not going to get above like a Rudy Gobert in voting, but he probably deserves to be on one of those two all defensive teams based on his effort. Eddie, same kind of question to you. If you had to vote, where are you leaning right now? What jumps out most about the Celtics defense when you're watching it?
Well, it's the fact that they have 2 really good lockdown defenders. And as Scal was saying, Marcus doesn't have any weakness to where he's really great on the perimeter. And then you try to post him up and he's having a problem down there where we got to start being in rotation and double. And it's similar with Rob on the perimeter. He's not as great as he is on the perimeter as he is in the interior, because, yeah, guy's going to have a little quickness advantage, but where he makes it up is with his range, with his length, and with his quickness and his jump. So he's still, even if you get past him, and I've played against guys like this, I know I'm getting past him. He's slow. But I know that he has length, and he probably still can meet me there. Just that thought in your head and understanding that that could be there is still a deterrent in some way, because you're not just thinking I got an easy layup. You're thinking like, where is he at? You looking over your shoulder. Is he coming? Okay, he's not. I'm good. Or, man, he right there. I'm got to try to get this off the glass real quick, or I got to try to find somebody. And I think the thing with Marcus, so I would probably go with Marcus, because the fact of the matter is you don't have to double him. And you have to kind of help a little bit sometimes. Rob gets extended out there on the perimeter. A guard recognizes who they have on him. Back it up a little bit, let the spacing happen, and then they come downhill and attack him. I think the one thing about Marcus, too, and Scal, you was talking about in the post, is he does his work early. You know, I think that's what makes him so impressive. That's what's so impressive about him, is his work is done early, to where he doesn't allow a guy, he battles. He doesn't allow a guy just to get to a spot, and then now once the guy gets to a spot, now I'm going to start fighting him. He's fighting and fighting and fighting. And then once he gets him, the guy's off his spot. Now he's fighting him to try to get to his spot, and then he contests the shot. And I think that's what separates those two for me, is that I don't think Rob can do exactly what Marcus does in the post on the perimeter, even though it's serviceable, even though it's impressive, but I don't think it is as consistent as Marcus is.
The one thing I want to dive into on the numbers, and I haven't done this yet, but I'm intrigued to see what teams shoot near the basket when Rob is out there, and the number of attempts versus when he is, because yesterday it just felt like the Warriors had no desire to drive at the basket when Rob was in there. And if they did, even when he got caught ball watching for 1 second, he recovered and blocked that shot. He get the give and go. He absolutely swallowed up that ball. So, Scal knows my allegiances here. I'm going to stump for Rob no matter what. But clearly Jason Tatum loves going out there afterward and crashing Abby's interview and saying Marcus deserves Defensive Player of the Year. And even Rob has come out and said he deserves Defensive Player of the Year. So I hope the Celtics make the push. I think they got to go all in if they're going to get one of these guys at least in the voting for the bigger award. And then, like Scal said, maybe the couple of them land on all defense here. Let's shift it to the standing. Scal, Celtics up to 4th in the East. It seemed improbable 2 months ago, like when they were 3 games under 500 and 11th in the East. Where do you think is the sweet spot for them? There's some hesitation, obviously, as you climb higher. You're bringing maybe Brooklyn into the mix. Should the Celtics be sort of cognizant of how this is all going to line up?
I mean, I don't know how they're going to treat that. I really don't. I think I went through Philadelphia's games. I know Doc. Eddie knows Doc. I think they're going to finish 3rd. I really do. I really think that the Celtics I think Philly will drop, and Philly will play Chicago in the first round. And I think the difference is I don't think Ime will lose games on purpose to stay at 4. And I don't want to say Doc will lose games on purpose, but Doc will do certain things to be like, I'm kind of cool playing those guys in the first round than playing Miami. I think Doc would probably say, I want to avoid Milwaukee as much as I can. He'll do that more than Ime. So my guess is that they'll end up finishing 3rd, and then they'll end up having, which I don't even think Cleveland's going to stay there. I think it's going to end up being Toronto. So I think that will be the first round matchup, which Toronto is playing some good. Toronto's funny, man. They're like, when they're rolling, they look amazing. And then when there are some games where they look garbage, man, it's so weird. And I don't know what to expect with them. When Siakam could be 13 for 17 from the field with 35 points, and then other nights he's out there and he looks lost. So, I mean, we shouldn't jump ahead. I just think my guess is that they'll end up finishing 3rd.
Eddie, like Scal said, these scannings are going to move all over the place. But if you had to pick your druthers, are you hoping for a young Cleveland team? Are you worried about the Nick Nurse factor and how he can kind of game it up if the Celtics draw them? Where would you like to see the Celtics sort of?
We talked about it last night, and I trying to get to that 3rd spot would be perfect, because then you'll have home court advantage. You'll be playing against a Toronto team who is inconsistent. Scal just said. That they win a championship, they had a total different team at that point. They had the Kawhi factor at that point. I look at their stars and I look at our stars. I think our stars are better than their stars. I look at our role players and I think that our role players are better than them. So I like that matchup. Against Cleveland, I think Cleveland's just young. I think they're a team that, they've been playing. I mean, they surprised everybody at the beginning of the season. Then people started saying, okay, we're going to start doing these things. And they're throwing different looks at these youngsters. And now the youngsters are coming back to reality as far as the league. Like, I got to learn a little bit more. And you don't learn and change too much in the season. It's the off season where you do all your work and you're able to show like, okay, I put in this work. Now I'm ready for what you're really trying to throw at me right now. So I would like to see us get to that third spot and play either Cleveland or Toronto. And I think those are perfect matchups for us because at the end of the day, you want to have confidence going into the playoffs, 1. Then you start at home, 2, and then you're not playing a world beater. Like, I think Chicago is a tough matchup. If it was to stop right now today, we have to play Chicago. To me, that's a little scary because they have 2 guys that can match our 2 guys, right? Then they have Lonzo Ball when he comes back. He's healthy. Caruso's a hell of a defender out there. So they got somebody that can do the same thing, very similar to Marcus Smart, be a disruptor on the perimeter. Okay, so for me, I would I wouldn't want to play them. But I'm not going to lose games to avoid anybody. At the end of the day, this is what it really comes down to. If you're going to win this shit, if you're going to win this, then
no, we're not PG on this thing. You can drop whatever you want.
You're right. Podcast, you could do that, E-House.
All right. Hey, so if
sure,
at
11 o'clock at night, after that, you can do it too.
All right. Hey, look, though, if you're going to win this shit, though, you got to go through everybody. You might want to just wait to see that dog at the end, that beast at the end, so you could clash, and have the clash of the Titans then. But regardless, you're going to have to go through somebody at some point if you're going to win the championship. I mean, so when people start saying, I'm trying to lose to avoid because I don't want to play, to me, I feel like that's good, but then it's also bad because now you're not going into the playoffs with the mindset. I got a story real quick. This is a little off kilter. So I just found this out, right? I just found this out. So my last year in Miami, 2011, right? It's the first time the Big Three's assembled. And last game of the season is Toronto. Mind you, I haven't played. Got the DNP like the last 3 games. So I'm not even thinking I'm playing, right? I'm like, I'm not playing. I'm kicking it, whatever. I get to the breakfast and they say I'm starting all of a sudden. I'm like, wait, what? Right? So I'm starting. I go to work, right? I end up having career high, 35 points on that night, right? And on that game. And the night before, believe me, I was kicking it because I didn't think I was playing at all. And we were in Toronto. I see it's Pat Delaney. I believe he's a coach with the Wizards. He said, hey, man, we were trying to throw that game. I was like, time out. So you thought by starting me we was going to lose because you started me? Ain't that a
They don't know. They don't know about E-House, man. They don't know how you're wired.
Bad mistake. But see, that's what's the kind of things that can happen. That if you start doing those type of things, then it doesn't work out when you have the wrong intent. I think the right intentions is try to win as many games as possible. Try to put yourself in the best position. Try to have the most confidence on everybody. I think Peyton Pritchard last night, huge shots for him after he didn't make the shots on Sunday. Big time shots to step right back in the same situation. Knock those shots down. Now moving forward, he has confidence. You're going to have to depend on those guys when it comes to the playoffs, when it comes to the final. The stars are the stars, but we know that the role players have to play a certain role in winning. If otherwise, you're not going to win.
All right, look, this podcast ended up going on for another 15 minutes because we shifted gears and started talking about the 2008 team. I'm going to be a little selfish here. It was so good. We're going to make you wait for it. So we're cutting this one right here. We're going to just, address the Marcus Smart stuff, feel good about where the Celtics are. We've talked about the playoff seedings, a couple more games, 3 more games on this West Coast trip. But you're going to have to wait because Eddie and Scal got real excited about the 2008 reunion and that whole weekend, what it was like seeing together. And I'll just tell you, there was a whole lot of ball busting going on. So you're going to want to go slam that subscribe button so that when that part 2 of this podcast drops, you're all ready. All right. While you're waiting, go check us out on the YouTube page. You can leave your comments there with what you're feeling about this whole Steph Marcus debacle and who should be the Celtics representative on all defense or the defensive player of the year. If you're like me, I'll be writing Robert Williams in there. So just go ahead and join me in the comments down there. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.